I started out by creating a plan because the yard is pretty small. I only had about 35 by 55 feet to work with. From the plans, I marked it out onto the grass using marker paint. My plan was to just use a sod cutter to cut around these lines that I've created and then use the pieces of sod to make the jumps. The sod cutter was pretty easy to use. There was only one hitch. There's an adjustment lever that kept coming undone, and I didn't know this until I got to the point where I was rolling up the piece of sod. I used a reciprocating saw to cut the sod into manageable pieces. The only problem is I made them too big at first and they were really heavy. It's best to cut them in 2-foot sections. Then I started to stack all these pieces of sod to try to make some track features and ramps. As I went along, I realized I had a problem with these roots. All the little trees in my neighbor's yard had hundreds of feet of these little roots that were just below the surface after cutting the sod away. It was a nightmare to try to get them cleaned up. Part of my original plan was to just skim some dirt from the surface after cutting the sod away to help form these hills. Well, I realized that doing it by hand with a shovel was creating a really uneven surface and not really working the way I wanted to. Plus, the sod was extremely soft, and I was worried that I would get these hills formed and then they would start to collapse. At this point, my back is killing me. I want to just get the job done, so I rented a skid steer. My neighbor offered to take a lot of the sod off my hands, and I figured I would use the skid steer to help move the sod over to his yard and to skim the surface of the track to start making these hills. I also decided to change the geometry of some of these hills because as I was testing my car out on them, I realized they were too big or not shaped right. So taking advantage of the skid steer, I moved some of the hills around and made them different shapes and smaller. But then I realized something else, that the dirt in my yard was just never going to stay compacted. It was going to get muddy. It didn't look very good. I decided to bring in some clay, like the type of dirt they use on baseball fields. I had 2 truckloads brought in, equaling 10 tons. At this point, I'm hurting pretty bad. It's a lot of work to do for one person. I had a couple of friends from work come in one day, and my son came over another day to help me move some of this dirt around. When I originally planned this, I was just going to carve it out with the sod cutter and use whatever dirt I had in my yard and compact it all. But in the end, it performs better and looks better to have the baseball diamond clay. I think they call it infield mix. And I originally didn't want to use any borders. I was just going to let the grass grow in between all the lanes. But the cars very easily run off of the track, and it's no fun. There's no challenge. So I wound up investing in the black drain pipe too. I still have a few more things I'd like to do. I want to plant some grass in some of those blank areas, maybe shift some of the piping around a little bit, and I may just bring in another couple of tons of clay to try to level it out some more and fix some of these jumps. The sod cutter worked great. I think that was a good idea, but trying to build the ramps with sod was not a good idea. Definitely find somebody who will take that off your hands. The skid steer was probably unnecessary. For the amount of work that I accomplished with it, I probably could have just extended the project by a few days and done it all by hand. The compactor may not have been needed. I think it helped, but with this infield mix, when you get some good downpours and some sunny days, it'll turn hard like concrete regardless of whether it's compacted or not. The tamping tool that I have shown here is probably the better thing to use. And of course, $85 on Amazon, this water-filled roller really helped as well. I hope that was helpful. I'd like to say I had a lot of fun doing it, but it was just a lot of hard work, and my neighbors probably think I'm insane now.